Okay, to get started with this pasta dish, I am going to start off by cooking 12 ounces of thick cut chopped bacon. So here I have a pan preheating, and I am just going to add my bacon right into the pan, and I'm just going to start sauteing it and breaking it apart. Basically what I want to do is cook this at a medium to medium high heat, not necessarily high because I don't want to burn it or sear it. I want to actually render out a lot of that bacon fat. So once my bacon is broken apart and starts to saute, eventually it will crisp up, but I do want to render some bacon fat. Now, depending on how high you have your heat, that will determine the cook time, but I'm using again a medium heat, and this is going to go through stages. It'll look like this, where it's broken apart and it looks still raw. It's not crispy or golden brown, but keep going, and eventually you will have this crispy bacon pieces. Okay, so I'm turning off the heat, and now I'm going to remove this from my pan, and I am going to place all of my bacon pieces on a plate lined with paper towels, and this will help soak up any residual grease from the bacon, and it'll help maintain its texture while it sits until I need it. Once I'm done removing all of my bacon, I am going to save all of that rendered bacon fat. I'm actually going to be using 2 tablespoons of this when I start my cheese sauce, but saved or rendered bacon fat goes well in other recipes. Once I've removed all of the bacon grease, I am going to wipe out any debris left from the bacon because I don't want that to burn when I start sauteing things. Okay, so at this point, my pan is wiped clean, and I'm going to start preheating it again. And now I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of that rendered bacon fat. Now, if you are not going to use bacon in this recipe, or you just want to opt not to use bacon because you don't eat it or you don't have it, you don't have to use 2 tablespoons of bacon grease to start your cheese sauce. You can definitely use the oil of your choice, or sometimes I like to use butter when I'm not adding bacon to this. I'll use 2 tablespoons of butter. So those are options for those that do not want to use bacon in this recipe because it really is a delicious cheese sauce. So now I'm adding 3 tablespoons of finely minced onion, and that goes right into my preheated bacon grease. I'm going to give that a mix, and now I'm going to add 2 chopped cloves of garlic. Now, if you don't have fresh garlic or onion, or you just don't like it, you could also opt to use granulated onion and garlic powder. Probably a half teaspoon of onion powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic, or change the ratios to your preference. So now that this is sauteing, I am just going to give it a mix. And again, I'm not working with a high heat. I'm working with a medium heat. And I'm going to add just a pinch of salt. This will help sweat out the onion and garlic and just kind of help the saute along. By the way, I am not adding any extra salt in this recipe because with the bacon and the 2 cheeses that I will be using, I find that that is enough salt in this recipe. And I'm also going to salt well my pasta water when I boil the pasta. But definitely you want to salt and season this to your preference, because when you are cooking for yourself, trust me, I know all too well when I make a recipe and I want to add a little bit of this and that because it's what I like. So by all means, definitely salt and season this cheese sauce to your preference. Okay, so this has sauteed for several minutes. It already has a little bit of golden brown color on it. So now I am going to add the dairy of my choice. And for those of you that follow me know that I like to use evaporated milk in my cheese sauces. So I'm going to be adding 3 cans of evaporated milk. In total, that will be around 36 ounces. Now, if you do not have evaporated milk readily available to you, you could also use heavy cream, or you can do a mixture of heavy cream and whole milk. But I do not suggest just using whole milk because I find that whole milk will not thicken and be too watery when it's all said and done. So just be mindful of that. If you are going to use something other than evaporated milk, make sure you use something like half and half, or for those of you that cannot find half and half, it's basically half heavy cream, half whole milk. So I'm just going to give everything a stir, and I'm going to bring this to a gentle simmer. Again, I'm working with a medium heat, and I want this to heat through before I start adding my cheese. Now before I add my cheese, I'm going to add some freshly grated nutmeg. I like to add nutmeg to my cheese sauces, but this is optional. You can opt not to do this, but if you do have some whole nutmeg, just give it a couple scrapes on your grater because it does pair well with the cheese sauce. But again, it's optional. Okay, so at this point, my evaporated milk and other ingredients are combined well, and the milk is heated through. So now I'm going to start adding my cheeses. So today I am going to be using 4 ounces of grated Parmesan cheese. I found a bag of this in my refrigerator. I think my husband bought it because I normally have the frozen wedges that I keep, but I didn't want this to go to waste, so I'm going to add that right into my evaporated milk. I'm also going to add grated mozzarella cheese. This is a low moisture block of mozzarella cheese. You can use fresh mozzarella cheese. I bet that would be fantastic in this, but this is again what I had. By the way, if you do use your own freshly grated cheeses, that works a lot better. While this is melting, I want to show you something I do to make this a spicy dish. Sometimes I like to add 1 tablespoon of red pepper powder. This is a Korean red pepper powder. And this is just something I like to do when we feel like something spicy. I also sometimes will add some cayenne pepper. I actually like the Korean red pepper powder because it doesn't hit me in the back of my throat like cayenne does. But for those of you that like spice, those are some options to add to this creamy pasta dish. Okay, so I am just mixing and stirring this on a medium heat to allow the cheese to melt and combine into the evaporated milk. And once I get things going, I am actually going to lower this all the way to the low setting, and I'm just going to let it simmer and sort of reduce slightly and just continue melting while I cook my pasta. So I am going to be making 1 pound of fettuccine pasta. You can use the pasta of your choice, just make sure you use 1 pound. So I already have my water boiling here on the side, so all I'm going to do is add 3 hefty pinches of salt. If I had to guess, this is probably around 3 tablespoons of salt, and I'm using a coarse ground sea salt. So after adding the salt, I'm just going to give it a good mix just to make sure the salt has dissolved in the water. And then I'm going to add my pasta. Again, you can use this cheese sauce with virtually any pasta of your choice. So now I'm going to add my fettuccine right into the water, and I am using an 8-quart stock pot for those of you that want to know how large my pot is, and that seems to be a good size to cook a pound of pasta. So I'm just going to give it a mix and make sure none of the noodles are sticking together, and I'm just going to follow the instructions on the box. 10 minutes for al dente. I'm going to take it to around 11 to 12. So my cheese sauce has been simmering this whole time, and as you can see, it is thick, creamy, and looks perfect. It is ready for this pasta. So I'm going to give it a couple of stirs. By the way, this has just been gently simmering on low, and you can already tell the cheese is melted and the sauce is creamy and it has thickened. So I'm just going to add some freshly cracked black pepper, give that a mix, and this cheese sauce is done. Again, if you want a spicy version to this, you can definitely add, I think I said a tablespoon of that Korean pepper powder. I actually meant 1 teaspoon, but definitely go for a tablespoon if you want it that spicy. Cayenne pepper is another choice. You could also add some crushed red pepper flakes. If you find your cheese sauce has thickened too much, just add some of that pasta water and mix it right back in until you get the consistency you prefer. So right now I'm adding all of my fettuccine noodles, And I am definitely going to add all the bacon. By the way, one dangerous thing about cooking bacon and leaving it on the side is that people pick and eat at it when you're not looking. So I'm going to add the bacon right into my pot, give everything a mix, and this pasta dish is served. You can definitely serve it with your favorite side salad because this is a very rich and creamy pasta dish. And I like to garnish it with parsley and things like that. But again, you can definitely add the garnishes, seasonings, and spices to your preference and taste. Now, you'll notice as I'm stirring it, it might seem like the ratio of pasta to the sauce is uneven or unbalanced, but I just want you to bear in mind, as your pasta sets, it's going to absorb that sauce. So this is why it looks overly saucy, because eventually it will absorb it. So trust me, if you do feel apprehensive about the ratio of this, don't worry, it'll all work out. I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching!